I just think like the thing that also viewers don't understand is like the off season we had just now from last season to this season
What
was
off season?
criminal. But besides that, like I don't think viewers realize. So we lost like 2 weekends ago, or we didn't have a good performance, and they're like, "Oh, you get a weekend off though." No, like that weekend
No.
off that you
That's
have
like
is just
grinding.
more stress building up to the next tournament. And like the fact that I think viewers just don't realize is that's not like they're like, oh, you have 2 weeks off because you don't play until this Friday. So that's like what, 13 days off or something. And I really think viewers don't comprehend that no, during that 13 days is just each day is more of a stress, usually more of a stress buildup until that day commences and you play that next tournament. And it makes the whole season feel like that. And if the season's like what, 9, 10 months,
It's 11 months basically, isn't it? Like it's.
yeah, no, the
Just under, right? Like 10 and a half.
Did you guys find that, like, the 2019 when we had like the most lands ever actually wasn't like a burnout because it was like such a dynamic range of lands and.
I thought it was fine.
yeah, I thought it
I
was
thought it was
fun
great.
because
Yeah,
like
it was fun.
it was so fun. I mean, at this point, I think I was like 2 years out of school or like professional, like full time, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, yo, I get to travel. I'm like traveling. I'm like thinking in my head, oh my god, like in this month span, I'm traveling to this place, and this place for like Rocket League. So it's actually like refreshing because worst comes to worst, you can spend extra time and go, do some sightseeing. But when it's just online or you're just in your room, like you don't have that mental refresh or that refresh mental of visiting another place or just getting outside your setup at your home.
Did you guys happen to hear about the two split thing I mentioned last week on CJCJ Show? Chrome CJ, you guys remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
What
I
you were
remember.
saying? So I proposed a plan, not a plan, like a guide kind of, because you know how the third regional of each split is an invitational.
Mm-hmm.
You turn that invitational into a regional LAN, and you get rid of the middle split. So you have two splits. You have the third regional of each split being an invitational LAN. That's a regional LAN to qualify for the major, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then to replace the second split, you introduce two third-party LAN events that have some sort of qualification relevancy towards Worlds. So that you end up having 6 LANs before Worlds. And only 2 actual RLCS splits.
How cool would it be if they did, like how CS, they'd say, hey, this time it's going to be like an E-League and that's going to help qualify, or this time it's going to be this DreamHack and you're going to get qualification points. So like how CS sort of do it, like circuit points, but they like pick different TOs. Like this year, like we've got 2 land spots. This time it's going to be E-League. This time it's going to be like WSOE. This time it's going to be like a BTS or, stuff like that. They just like gave it to third-party TOs instead of it just being all run through Sonics, run through RLCS. Like they had these separate events. So it felt fresh. Like they were different formats and stuff like that. And yeah, you let the third-party TOs have tournaments, but also you could qualify through the Worlds through that.
Well,
mix it
I
up.
could be wrong. I mean, that would sound great if that's your, but like, is Psyonix still like contracted with a specific, production team or
Yeah,
something?
they use ESL DreamHack for all their
So
events.
like that's why they can't, go to an E-League or go to a DreamHack and then go to like a Blast Pro. Like I don't think Blast Pro does wrong, but for example, like those other TOs, it's because they're like kind of they like restricted themselves with that one tournament organizer which does all their events.
I definitely think they could renegotiate, and if they do like have an exclusivity clause or something that only they can do any Rocket League esports, then that's kind of scuff for that. But I definitely think they could just have DreamHack and ESL be the main, or like RLCS production, and then also bring in other third-party TOs like E-League, Blast, IEM, other people.
But yeah,
Like, I think they could renegotiate that.
I think, yeah, as you said, I don't want to dive too much into like formats and stuff. We sort of spoke about at the start of the show, but I think as you said, Chicago, like the main problem right now is there really isn't an off season. But if you're not a top team, you're not playing for 7 months of the year. Like you're finishing up in May, you're finishing up your split.
Yeah.
Like the spring split, third regionals in May, and then you're not playing again until September, like end of September, and then you're playing 2 regionals, and then you're not playing until January. Like you're playing 2
That is
regionals in
true.
7 months. But if you're making worlds, making all the majors, you have a month off. And if your team's making a roster move or you're unsure about your position, you're going to be scrimming throughout that whole month.
Yeah, it also feels like some of these splits are like a drag too, because you're playing every other week, but then every other week you're not having a break technically, like what Chicago said earlier. So it makes it even more stressful too, because then you're playing a million matches just to make it to one LAN, and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, like Rotterdam almost feels like a continuation of last season. Like I know it's a different season, but in my when I
You're
just
just
think about the
rolling through
past,
again.
it just feels like I'm just still connected to last season. Like I'm still just
Yep.
going. It doesn't feel like this is like okay, this is a new event with like new points and everything. It just feels like oh, I'm back at another land. Like it's just like okay, you do this. It's like it feels like such a
Do you think
routine.
it's
It's like okay,
Do you think it's
this,
just
this,
like
this.
all the majors? Like, well, for one, I felt like the majors felt like worlds. Like, people wanted to win. People are saying in chat, like, oh, the teams didn't care about winning the major. They just wanted to accumulate points for worlds. No, I feel like
that was
everyone
the biggest lie
everyone
ever.
that went
Everyone
to
wants
the
to win a
major
major.
wanted to win the major just as much as the world championships. Like, literally just as much. It felt like just as impressive. The hype was there. Like, it was a similar, like, crazy crowd and stuff like that. And it felt, I don't know, to me, it felt like we basically had 4 world championships. Like, the build up, the hype, like, everything about it. For the players, at least.
Yeah, no. Majors were crazy. I mean, I think Worlds was just a different level just because, like, the venue was bigger, the money was bigger, so that's the only difference. But in terms of, like, I was just as sad when when I lost majors I would have been at when I lost in Worlds in season 7, or like season 6. It wasn't like I wasn't like okay, it's a major. Like, I'm good. Like, no, it was like that. It's a LAN, you're playing against international competition. You don't want to just. It's like okay, fine. Worlds is at the end of the corner. No, you want to. Yeah, I don't understand that argument.
Like, true. It's like you make a roster change, your roster blows up, and you literally have no break. You're just right back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not enough time to cool down. There's not enough time to absorb everything that happened. Even just like you don't have time for a break, but you also don't have time to just like think about absorb everything that happened the past season.
I think I could be wrong, but in between RLCS like X and 21, 22, there was like an actual off season. And I remember I like tried to not. I literally tried not to play the game because I knew how much of like a grind it was gonna be, and it actually felt good because I was just like I was back home, I was just enjoying life, like, and then because I knew how bad and how stressful it'd be once you start that season, because at that point you have no breaks. But this season, you had maybe 3 weeks of that compared to 2 months. Or like 2 weeks of that.
Champs was in June and we didn't start till like October or September or something.
Yeah, where
like
this one you literally I literally knew teams that started scrimming a week and a half or 2 weeks after Worlds. Like that is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, people were messaging because everyone made roster changes. People were messaging us like, "When are you guys gonna swim?" And we're like, "Oh, we're taking a break." And it almost felt troll to take a break because it was like so close. It felt like we were like throwing by actually taking a break, but.
No, I felt like
everyone made a roster change and everyone just hyped the scrim besides us and G2 probably.
Like for example, like I think Mist was like he obviously I can say now, but he's like trying out with FaZe or something, and he like wanted to scrim us because weren't the greatest teams hadn't started scrimming yet, like us, NRG, etc. But he was like joking with me, and he'd be like, "Oh, G2's getting lazy. Okay." And I'd be like,
"Wait, who said that?"
Eventually missed.
Yeah,
but like, I knew he was joking, but eventually I like started thinking in my head. I was like, do I like try and find?
I started getting nervous.
Yeah, I was like, am I
nervous,
fucking up because I'm not like scrimming, even though I just played like it? And I was like, you know what, I gotta start, looking for places on the East Coast. I gotta get out there. I gotta start playing. And it was just like, dude, I genuinely was worrying myself because I was taking a break when these other teams started scrimming right after Worlds.
I feel like you're just at a huge disadvantage too with the season right away. Like we started scrimming early, FaZe scrimmed a little bit earlier than us, and I feel like it was a huge advantage for us going into that first event. We were so confident, especially for that invitational quals, compared to some teams who just started scrimming like Furia and Gen G, and they got punished for it. I felt
they
didn't qualify.
Yeah, I think the
I was gonna say it's like the biggest we talk about the monkey moon stress. Like the biggest thing as well is like this secondhand when you're not practicing or playing or scrimming. It's like that thought in the back of your head that you should be, like that guilt that you feel if you're not like grinding as much as other people. It actually like weighs you down.
Well, so many people don't make the events that they just keep playing, or like they've already had a 3-month break. So like everyone else in Europe is probably scrimming.
They're
besides
itching, bro.
4 of the teams or something, because they just haven't played anything since. When was the last split? April.
May.
The end of the last split was May, and then
yeah.
what? It was all the way at the end of August when the Worlds ended.
September.
So everyone else is like ready to play, and then you
What
just
if-
got home from your win at Worlds. I don't know, it's just funny.
What if Riyadh and Worlds were swapped?
Riyadh.
That would have been better, yeah.
And like, you could like people probably could just if they wanted a break could have just not gone to. Gamers
Well,
8.
that was the best part about the dream hacks is that like if you can go and like get your competition. If you don't want to go, you don't have to go. Like,
And you don't have to
don't
sweat
know.
in a qualifier. You can just go.
Yeah, you can just go up, open event, and there's just like so much less stress. There wasn't the problem about this season is it's an 11-month season, but the weight of it, like from the first split, I know the points increase every split, but you're still playing for Worlds Regional 1 in like September of the year before.
Yeah, everything
You know what I mean?
feels like it matters all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just on. So
Because if you're not one of the 5 teams who make a major, it's like kind of rough. I think that's why there's so little spots to get like the majority of the points. I think that's why. I feel like that's why, because we're trying to make Worlds, but you've got to make these smaller events to make Worlds. So it's like
yeah.
I don't know. It's constant. It's not a build up throughout. It's like you got to start making it. Unless you go on a deep run at the end, but that's it.
If Garrett quals and I don't, or vice versa, or neither of us qual, we still have these tournaments as stress for the end of the year at Worlds. So you can't take a tournament off and be like, okay, whatever. Like this tournament tomorrow, even if we don't play our absolute best, it could literally ruin our chance for 8 months or for the World Championship 9 months from now. So it literally makes every tournament so like insanely stressful that it's just crazy to think about.
I guess it's just how it is. It's just like I think for being so much online Rocket League, it feels like that's why I think it feels like a continuation of the last season, because we're just playing thousands of games online to try to make this one event or like these 3 or 4 events. I don't know. I think for me, it's like the amount of online games to just, especially when you don't make it, like when you don't make one, it's like you played so much online Rocket League and then you still didn't make it. And then because you didn't make it, you got to play more online and do even better I don't know. It's just, I think the online Rocket League is the amount of online games is what makes it like feel kind of bad to me.
I wanted to ask you, Garrett, like in regards to the stress, like you guys in particular, NRG have been under the pump for, since, as you said, since I guess LA. I want to ask that OT winner against Optic when you stood up and went off, was that like, hell yeah, like we won, we're through the semis, or was that like a F you, everyone, like we're still here sort of thing? I always want to, because I watched
NRG's
that
comp video if you want to check it out, CJ.
Well, usually I'm like watching Justin slot one in that moment, so it was like it felt good to be like the person doing it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, it was just cool. I wasn't thinking too. Yeah, it probably was like that. Like it was just nice to get a good placing, even if like, I don't think it was like a necessarily hard run, but it just felt good to be back in the conversation. I guess like we have a chance to make it, So I don't know. I think I was more hyped that I just scored in the way I did. I think.
I mean, you did kind of peak, honestly.
Yeah, and it just felt good.
It was cool. It looked at, I don't know. I probably interpret differently. It looked just like a not a weight off your shoulders, but like just a release of like tension. Like there would have been so much tension like built up. And then you finally get a good result.